today we will read two stories, Tell the Story and Queen Penelope, and your narrative focus will be on diction, detail, and indirect characterization. Your learning objectives is you will be able to use annotation to help you make meaning from poetry, and also identify how diction, detail, physical descriptions, actions, and dialogue contribute to indirect characterization. So first of all, story one is Tell the Story. Your directions for step one is that while you read, you are going to highlight the diction or single words and detail, which is a group of words, that Homer uses to describe the protagonist Odysseus. And then step two is to write 2 sentences explaining what the reader learns about Odysseus. So let's show you what I have practiced, what I've created so far. Homer opens up with an invocation or a prayer asking the muse to help him sing his tale. Notice how the singer gives his listeners hints about how his story is to end. So the step one was to, while you read, highlight the diction, single words, and detail, or group of words that Homer uses to describe the protagonist Odysseus. You can see that I have already done that in the first stanza of the poem. On the right side, it says write 2 sentences explaining what the reader learns about Odysseus. So let's read the first stanza together. Tell me about a complicated man. Muse, tell me how he wandered and was lost when he had wrecked the holy town of Troy, and where he went and who he met, the pain he suffered on the sea, and how he worked to save his life and bring his men home. So here's my example. When Homer describes Odysseus as, and these are my words, someone who worked to save his life and bring his men home, notice that that's what I copied, he implies that Odysseus does not give up easily and is loyal to his men. So what's your job now is to read the last few stanzas of this introduction, so there's 2 more stanzas, and to continue to highlight any diction or detail that Homer uses to describe the protagonist Odysseus. So he failed, for their own mistakes they died. They ate the sun god's cattle, and the god kept them from home. Now, goddess, child of Zeus, tell the old story for modern times. Find the beginning. All the other Greeks who had survived the brutal attack of Troy sailed safely home to their own wives, except this man alone. Calypso, a great goddess, had trapped him in her cave. She wanted him to be her husband. When the year rolled around in which the gods decreed he should go home to Ithaca, his troubles still went on. The man was friendless. All the gods took pity, except Poseidon's anger never ended until Odysseus was back at home. So what you're going to do is first highlight any other parts in here that describe Odysseus, and then you're going to write 2 more sentences about Odysseus based upon the evidence that you choose. Let's move on to the next story. The next story is about Queen Penelope, and this story is about what's happening to her while Odysseus has been away. So for this one, in the actual original story, it's books 4 and book 16. So it's combined into one story for us, and we're calling this story 2 on Queen Penelope. So for step 1, as you read Queen Penelope, take note of and highlight in different colors. Any physical descriptions of her, I want you to highlight in yellow. Any time you see her actions, highlight in green. And anytime you see dialogue or what she says, I want you to highlight that in blue. So you will see that down below. I've already done that in a couple of instances to get you started, but the story itself is a little bit longer than just the part that I have done. Okay, so let's go ahead and read it. Odysseus' wife, the wise Queen Penelope, has waited many years for the return of her husband. For the first 10 years of his absence, Penelope continually received word about Odysseus' battles and victories in Troy. But now, after many years and barely a whisper about her husband, Queen Penelope must deal with over 100 young suitors that have come from all over Ithaca and beyond to try to win her hand and become the next king. Notice that these are her actions. She's waited for many years for the return of her husband, and she has to deal with over 100 young suitors who have come for her hand in marriage. Most of these suitors are barely older than her son, Prince Telemachus. Penelope and her son, Telemachus, are in great danger as the suitors become impatient and their hostility grows. Desperation sets in, and the young prince decides to secretly sail to nearby Pylos and Sparta to seek the news of his father. Once the ringleaders of the suitors, the greedy Antinous and godlike Eurymachus, discover Telemachus' absence, and they plot to ambush and murder him. Penelope's grief is palpable when she hears of their plan. And here's what happens. Penelope was soon aware of all the suitors' secret plots. The houseboy Medon told her, since he had been outside the courtyard as he heard the plans they were devising. He rushed to tell her, "My queen, I wish this were the worst of it. Now they are plotting even greater ruin. May Zeus ensure it never comes to this pass. The suitors want to kill Telemachus with sharp bronze weapons as he hit on his journey home. He went to sandy Pylos and Sparta for word about his father. At the news, her legs grew weak, her heart sank, she was struck dumb for a time, and her voice blocked as her eyes filled up with tears. At last she answered him, "But why did my son go away? There was no need to go on those swift ships that gallop like horses over miles of salty water. Did he intend to lose his name as well and be unknown?" Grief wrapped around her, eating at her heart. The house was full of chairs, but she could not bear to sit upright. In her bedroom doorway, collapsing on the floor, she wept and cried. All around her, women, young and old, were whimpering. Voice thick with tears, she sobbed. So I want to remind you of the 3 different colors. So yellow is physical descriptions of her, and you can see that here. Her legs grew weak, her heart sank, she was struck dumb, so she couldn't speak for a time, and her voice was blocked as her eyes filled up with tears. Those are physical descriptions. Grief wrapped around her, eating at her heart. Something she could feel. Her actions are green. Okay, so she could not bear to sit upright. Collapsing on the floor, she wept and cried. Voice thick with tears, she sobbed. Those were her actions. And then the blue, what she says, is dialogue. And you can see, based upon the quotation marks, this is something that she said. Now, as you continue to read, you're going to continue to highlight in those 3 colors everything that fits in those categories. So I'll just read it for you. Friends, listen. Zeus had cursed me more than all the women of my family. Already I lost my noble lion-hearted husband, and now the winds have taken my dear son, and no one told me that he was setting out. Shame on you all. Then the loyal Euryclea said, "Lady, sweetheart, even if you take a sword and kill me, I will tell the truth. I knew all this. I gave him what he asked for, bread and sweet wine. He made me swear an oath not to inform you till 12 days had passed, or until you heard about it and you missed him, so that you would not cry and spoil your beauty." This is narration. Euryclea manages to soothe Penelope by guiding prayers to the gods for Telemachus' safe return. Athena, goddess of war and wisdom, hears these prayers and sends down a spirit to comfort and reassure Penelope that her son will return home safely. Later in Book 16 of the epic, Penelope bravely confronts the suitors about their plans to ambush Telemachus. So this whole part is all about the fact that her son has left to go look for his dad. And now we have her confronting the suitors because they want to ambush or kill Telemachus, her son. Penelope decided she must show herself to these ungentlemanly suitors, since she had found out about the plot to kill her son. Her women at her side, she went downstairs into the hall, approached them, and then stopped, standing beside the doorpost with a veil across her face. She told Antinous, "You are a brute, a sneak, a criminal. These people say you are the smartest boy of all of your own age in Ithaca. It is not true. You are insane. How could you devise a plan to kill Telemachus? Have you forgotten that your father came here running in terror from the Ithacans, who were enraged because he joined the pirates of Taphos and was hounding I'm not sure how to say that, the Sprotheans, our allies? Odysseus protected him. Now you consume your benefactor's wealth and court his wife and try to kill his son, and you are hurting me. I tell you, stop, and make the other suitors stop as well." Queen Penelope's brave actions would make Odysseus proud. The suitors did not ambush Telemachus as planned, but think of other ways to destroy the prince. All of these are unsuccessful, and Telemachus returns home safely as promised by Athena's messenger. So then we move on to step 2. So if you have finished step 1 correctly, then there will be highlighted descriptions of her physical descriptions, her actions, and what she says. So there should be yellow, green, and blue all throughout this part. Okay, from here in line 28 all the way until the end in line 62. Now, As you read, for step 2, as you read Queen Penelope, you took note of physical descriptions of her, her actions, and what she says. Record an example of each below by copying a highlighted text example and pasting it in the left-hand column. That's this side. Afterward, explain how the description, action, and dialogue indirectly characterizes Queen Penelope in the right-hand column. So here is where you're going to paste a physical description of her. You're going to copy and paste an action, and you're going to copy and paste something she says. Over here, you're going to explain how the description, action, and dialogue indirectly characterizes Queen Penelope below. So you'll say, this evidence reveals that Queen Penelope is, and you'll tell us the type of woman she is. Then, based upon her actions, this evidence reveals that Queen Penelope is, and you'll describe her. And then, based upon the dialogue, you'll say, this evidence reveals that Queen Penelope is, whatever it is, like describe her as a person based upon the dialogue. And then you're done. You will go ahead and turn this into Canvas, and you will be all set.